I'm Nicole, and this week, instead of doing the Your Security Boss podcast, I thought I'd do it on camera, mostly because the topic, I think, is one that just lends itself better to having face-to-face dialogue. But I'm also going to export this into the podcast for voice only if you want to take it on the road with you. So the topic was going to be ROI, but I decided I couldn't really do ROI without first talking about how you build up to it, and that is sort of the straight talk. Um, Look, for today, I'm going to talk about basically three things: knowing your target, making sure that you're straightforward, and solve the problem. And this was inspired by a book that I read in 2005 by Brian Fugere, Why Business People Speak Like Idiots. And it just strikes me that we have a tendency to fall sometimes into the same bucket because we get so caught up on discussions of things that are so minute and that maybe are an homage to our technical competency, where we really strive to explain things in a way that shows that we're professional security people and that there are many technical and complicated aspects to what we do. And then the message is entirely lost because we're speaking in another dimension that has nothing to do with the topic at hand. And so for today, I'm really going to stick with the theme of, how to avoid security people sounding like idiots. I typically give a disclaimer, and so today's going to be no different. When I say speak like an idiot, look, in the book, Brian Fugere describes what this means. And basically, it's not somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about. It's somebody who we're not sure that they know what they're talking about because they're so busy baffling us with BS, lots of words, lots of jargon, tons and tons of information, but maybe not necessarily getting right to the point in a clear and concise way. And so I'm using it in the same way today. How can security practitioners ensure that the conversations that we have with our stakeholders, with our management teams, with our leadership teams, quite frankly, with our employees and with our teams, that we speak in a way that we get our message across and that we don't sound like idiots? So, what are some ways that we can avoid this? I'm going to give you three. Number one, know your target. Number two, be straightforward. And number three, solve a problem. So, how do we do this? First, knowing your target. You have to understand more than just the title. You have to know who the stakeholder is and how it is that they're seeing the problem or the solution that you're going to bring to them. So you have to really get to, I think in sales they talk about the need behind the need or the question behind the question. This applies to us as well. We have to hear that when the CFO is asking, why is this camera so expensive, that he isn't necessarily asking you, why is this camera so expensive? He's asking you, why should I spend this much more money than I have previously? Why should I authorize this additional expense? When you are talking about a particular system to CFO versus the CEO versus the HR person versus your own team, you have to understand that all of these people are looking at the problem and the solution through their own filter. So you have to be able to move above and outside of what you're thinking or the one particular feature or even the technical expertise, the thing that might be really juicy and interesting. And you have to think about, what problem am I solving for this particular stakeholder? So what's their need? What is their lens? How are they viewing this? If the CFO is asking me a question, does he get the same answer as the HR person? Probably not if you want to get the project done. So understand who your target is and then make sure that you're able to tailor your response, that you're able to tailor the value proposition according to the person who's asking the question. Number two, be straightforward. So there's a lot of words that we can use, and there's all kinds of standards that we can cite, and even best practices, and all of these things. Well, they serve their purpose and they're important. But when you're having a conversation, think in terms of executive summaries. What problem am I trying to solve? Why is this a good move?
and how can I deliver the solution in a way that's going to meet the needs of my company. So when you're having this conversation, you need to be able to deliver it in a way that gets rid of the unnecessary jargon, that gets rid of the unnecessary technical details, and that gets rid of sort of the maybe unnecessary posturing about how much you know about a particular topic. Now, there's room for that as well, but in most cases, that's kind of part two of the dialogue. Part one of the dialogue is this is what the thing is, this is what the problem is, this is what the solution is, and this is what I'm suggesting. And then if they're interested, then there's room to have a conversation about other things. But be straightforward whenever possible. Now, I've said this one consistently through the other two, which is solve a problem. The issue is how you describe the problem that you're solving in part one and part two to your particular stakeholder, and when you're leaving out the jargon, that there needs to be some kind of a problem that you're solving to begin with. And so you have to be able to be providing some kind of a value. The service, the policy, the process, the new tool, the new way of doing something, the new whatever it is, the thing that you're changing, the thing that you want to describe, or quite frankly, even if you're not changing it, you just want to describe the process that you're currently running, it has to be there for a reason. And that is the thing that you need to lead with. I'm solving a particular problem. This is the problem that I'm solving, and this is how it impacts you specifically. And so, very, very simple. This conversation started around the topic of why business people sound like idiots and how we can avoid security people sounding like idiots. Before we get into a conversation about developing or building an ROI, if somebody asks you a question about how can I make this door stronger without it being ugly, don't cite 27 standards and give them an example of how it's not going to work. Either answer the question with, I understand that the looks of this door are important to you, understand the need in your stakeholder. I understand that the strength of it is important to you because you understand what the problem is that you're trying to solve. And what I recommend is that you use either X type of door, or there isn't a door that's been built that's been beautiful, but maybe we can look into manufacturing one. I don't know what the right answer is for this, but it's certainly not baffling them with all of the information that exists in the world or explaining how it couldn't possibly happen because it's never happened under your watch before. You've never seen anybody do it. Understand your person who's asking the question, understand how to solve the problem, and just get to it. And sometimes you're just not going to know. So it's okay to also say, I'm not sure. Let me get back to you on that.
Well, that's it for today. Thanks for joining me. And I'm sure that there's other ways that we could have talked about this topic and probably other best practices or principles. So if you'd like to share those with me, feel free to drop me a note. Otherwise, stay safe and sane, and we'll talk again soon.